Yes, I wanted to say a few words about what it is to be fully human and fully divine, because I use that expression a lot, and some of you might have a feeling of what that means, and some of you might not. So let's start with the divine bit. Let's start with the divinity bit. The divinity bit is the recognition and realization of that within us which is completely unconditioned. That within us which has no nationality, no gender, no birth sign, no political affiliation, no education. We don't even need to learn to be that. We are already that. And that appears in manifest form as the ground of being, or just a sense of embodied presence. And it appears as the witnessing consciousness, that which sees everything, knows everything, and yet it cannot be seen as an object itself. So that is one half of spiritual awakening and becoming conscious. It's realizing the truth of the unconditioned aspects of ourself. And that is the shift in consciousness. And without that shift in consciousness, then, really our spiritual path hasn't really begun, actually. But once the shift in consciousness begins and we begin to explore ourselves on a deeper level, then we begin to recognize these unconditioned aspects of ourselves, the ever-present ground of being and the witness of that. And for most people, maybe that's it, maybe that's it. But for others, there is also a necessary exploration of our human expression, a necessary exploration of certain parts within us which often don't marry up to the idea of spirituality. Maybe some young parts inside us, or some traumatized parts inside us, or maybe some parts that we had to deny and reject in order to just get through. So all of those parts, as we have a spiritual awakening, all of those parts begin to come back into consciousness. It's like our humanness, the parts of our humanness that we had to deny, start to reveal themselves again in the light of consciousness. Now you could approach that in one of two ways. You could say, well, I know I'm not that because I am the self, I'm the ever-present beingness, and all of that conditioned stuff isn't what I am. Or you could say, right, I'm going to unpack this a little bit, and I'm going to explore this a little bit, and I'm going to see which patterns seem to have the power to pull me back into this strong, into a strong identity, which isn't congruent with my spiritual nature. So, and I feel, unless we at least explore that a little bit, then these patterns, these unconscious patterns, which I believe we all carry to a certain extent, they are going to play themselves out in some pretty challenging ways. So I encourage people to make those parts of themselves conscious and explore them a little bit. What is their worldview? How do they see other people? How do they see you? How do they see spirituality? Are there parts of yourself which don't marry up and can create a lot of inner conflict? So this is really like the human part like getting down and dirty, getting into our humanness and bringing it into the light of consciousness and exploring it. And for that, you don't need to be in an ashram or go to India or be on a retreat. You know, all of that side of things is going to happen in the day-to-day living of your life, in your work, in your relationships, you know, with your neighbors, with your family, with your health, with your relationship to money, with your relationship to your work. All of these things are going to just play out naturally in your everyday life. And to deny those things, I think, is just seeing half the story. To just say, well, I know that isn't who I am, is to deny half of the story. And it's also to almost not find a lot of gold. There's a lot of gold there. You know, there's a lot to be discovered there. But that discovery needs some unpacking. It needs some unpacking. And just last thing to say is where these two things come together, that for me is really the adventure of spirituality, where our divinity and our humanness meet. You know, our divinity is where we are completely one and the same with everybody else. And our individuality is where we're completely different to everybody else. And it's like where those two meet, that's something extraordinary when, you know, you begin to explore that. That for me is the mystery. That's the mystery right there. Because, you know, it would be a dull world if we all became clones, you know, had a spiritual awakening and we all became clones of one another. So for me, it's, realizing our true nature and then honoring, accepting, allowing our human expression in the world and really living the truth of that. That's where the fun is. That's where the adventure is. That's where a lot of the juice is. And of course, all of these things is what I'm offering in the work that I do, to stand alongside you and explore what it is to be fully human and fully divine.